The Australian Socceroos are still trying to qualify for the FIFA 2026 Men's World Cup. The women's team, the Matildas, will play an AFC Asian Cup based at home in Australia next year. So there's a big calendar for Football Australia, which is going through significant change. As well as a number of exits from the organisation, Heather Garriock has been put in as interim CEO. She stepped down from the board to take on the role, and of course Heather Garriock is one of Australia's most capped Matildas players, representing the country 130 times. She's also been the CEO of another sports organisation, Taekwondo Australia. But with the AGM coming up for Football Australia and a number of challenges facing them at the moment, I sat down with Heather Garriock for a chat about all things football. Well, Heather Garriock, welcome to the Sports Ambassador. Thank you very much for your time. I know it's been a busy period. You just slotted into the interim CEO position there at Football Australia. You've just got back from a quick trip to Indonesia, where there was a really fantastic photo op, I guess you could call it, with the president and the PM swapping those jerseys. Yeah, well done on that. How has that whirlwind been?
Yeah, look, it's been a whirlwind, but it's been a great whirlwind. I'm obviously very honoured to be in this position on an interim role, but more importantly, serving the game as well. So, look, it's been a big week. Last week was, Indonesia and the PM and the president at the palace there in Indonesia, and also meeting with the president of the Indonesian Football Association as well. So, a great friendship and great bilateral relationships that we're looking forward to.
I know that the Australian government is working particularly hard on this sort of sports diplomacy aspect of their role, particularly in the region. And Indonesia is perhaps one of those areas we don't hear a lot about in Australia, and yet it's a massive partner for us. But in football terms, it's one of our oldest relationships. The competition between the two goes back almost 100 years.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And we've obviously identified that. And that's certainly at the forefront of our mind. Indonesia have done such a wonderful job, especially in the last couple of years with the new president that's taken over and their new 30-year plan, and utilising sports diplomacy as a key driver, not only for sport in Australia and in Indonesia, but globally as well. So we're excited about the relationship. We've got a few different projects on the go, and more to come as well. So the quick trip there was really, really important for us.
All right, let's talk about the role you now have, because you actually stepped down from the board. You were a director of Football Australia. People familiar with your background are well aware you're a former Matilda. You have given back to the game as a coach. You've pretty much done everything on that ladder, if you want to put it in those sorts of visual terms. But why did you step down from the board to slot into this interim position? Because I wonder if there are guarantees that you might be able to keep in the position full time, or whether you can go back on the board, or just explain that relationship.
Yeah, it's a really definitive time in football in Australia. And when James resigns, he's done such a wonderful job at being able to set football up in Australia. And therefore, it was an opportunity for me to step into that role. We needed to make a decision, and the board made the decision and believed that I was best placed, given the depth of knowledge strategically in the business, but the different facets that I've or paths that I've walked along, in particular, the focus and discipline that we need to be able to change and go forward. We've got a really important competition in the Asian Cup in 9 months' time, and we need to create stability, but creating stability with someone that people are familiar with, familiar face. I walk around the office, everyone knows who I am. But the key thing for me now is to be able to turn the strategic minds and governance mind into more operational, and that's what I'm doing at the moment. The last week or so is about listening and learning, but ultimately, I think in terms of the reason why the board felt or asked me to consider this position was because it was in the best interest of football.
And will you apply for this job to have it permanently? I don't know the process. Are they going to open applications? Are they going to go
Yeah.
on a search? Are they what's the plan for that?
Yeah, of course, there'll be a domestic and global search for the new CEO of Football Australia. But the most important thing for me, Tracy, is focus. And the board has asked me to focus on this interim period, and that's what I'm going to do. I've got an athlete mindset, very focused on what my role and responsibility is. I've got 11 priorities that myself and the team here at Football Australia needs to undertake in this interim period. And I haven't thought about beyond that. It's more about doing the job at hand and yeah, being super focused to do that, especially and knowing that I've got full belief in the board, which is really important for me.
You say you've got an athlete mindset. Let's explore that a little bit because I know an athlete's life can be fraught. You know, it's at the,
Yeah.
the the whim of the coach and the selection staff, and you know how you perform on the
Yeah.
day. You can be dropped at any time,
Yeah.
is what I'm saying. But obviously, as an athlete, you
Yeah.
you plan for beyond that. You don't plan on being dropped. You plan on doing a good job and staying inside the team. So if you look long term, and I know Anta Isaac, the chair of the board, did a Q&A with you and James Johnson when he was exiting,
Yeah.
and he asked you your plans for the next 12 months. I can't help thinking that with that athlete mind, you're looking at not just the next goal, but the one after that and the one after that and the one after that, should you be there.
Yeah, it's funny, Tracy. Yeah, I've always had long-term goals, whether it be to go to the Olympic Games or a World Cup, or as a coach to be successful within the period that you're coaching. But genuinely and honestly, I am really just focused on this interim period. I know how important this period is. We're about to have our AGM, and there's quite a lot of reports about our financial situation, and we do need to do better as an organisation. And whilst we've brought in $123 million this year, which is fabulous, and some key sponsors and our brands and different things like that. We need to run our business like a business, and we need to make sure that we're sustainable in the future. And therefore, whether I'm interim CEO or board director in the future, I'll always be a servant of the game. And so the board needed me at this time, and it's important that I can step up for the board.
Do you think you'll apply for the full-time job?
Um, I, I don't think that there's going to be here's my CV, here's the application process. So at this stage, I'm not even thinking about it.
You mentioned there the financial situation, and that's been well reported. Multi-million dollar debt for this year, and that was coming off a huge success of the FIFA Women's World Cup. So, but also, isn't much of that debt aligned with the A Leagues and the governing body of the A Leagues, APL, who haven't been able to pay the money they're supposed to pay to Football Australia? And some of that needs to be written off. So, how is that relationship going to be managed? Are they going to be in a position in the near term to be able to pay their debts to the governing body?
Yeah, look, I think the detail of the AGM and the financial report will be better reported on at the AGM, and I'll leave it to then. But what I can say that I'm excited about and is the collaboration and the connection that we have had as an organisation, Football Australia and the APL, and we continue to have, because if they're successful, we're successful, and if we're successful, they're successful. So the relationship is excellent. We are in a very good place. Stephen Conroy is the executive chair who is leading those discussions. I met with him yesterday, and I'll continue to meet with him on a weekly basis. But it is really important that we continue to support one another, whether it's we create efficiencies within our businesses together to help one another. But the success of football in Australia relies on each other, and therefore the relationship is so strong now, and it'll continue to be strong. And whether they need us and we need them, and vice versa, we'll continue to work together as a team.
Is there any indication, Heather, as to why they haven't been able to pay their debts to Football Australia, given that since the Women's World Cup, we know that registrations have gone up. We know that people are turning up more to watch the women's game, particularly. There's a new broadcast deal. Why is it that they can't pay those debts?
I'm not working in the APL operationally, so it's more for the board of APL to answer those questions. All I can say is that our relationship is a really good relationship. We're working very closely together, and whether it's now or in the future, we'll continue to help them, and likewise they're continuing to help us because they're part of our pathway, and they are such a incredibly important part of our pathway. And we saw that with the recent A-League W Grand Final. What a beautiful story that was for the Central Coast Mariners, a club that struggles financially and has come in and won the grand final. It's such a fairy tale story, and this is what we love about football. Regardless of who you are or where you come from or what you've been and your financial state, those memories are made. So we'll continue to support each other.
Just check the time because I know you're pressed for time and I've got to let you go soon. But you talk about getting that balance right. And I guess if we can just bring it back to go full circle to the job you're doing at the moment inside FA. Um,
Yeah.
was there any sort of succession plan? And I guess this is the toughest thing with a sports team, knowing when people move on and new ones are brought through. And it's the same in management, isn't it? And I know you've got experience. You were CEO of Taekwondo Australia, and I wonder what lessons you
Yeah.
brought from that in planning for succession. Because in the end, everyone moves on. I know there've been a lot of exits at Football Australia recently. It feels like it's a changing of the guard internally.
Yeah, which is healthy. Change is healthy. Change is uncomfortable. The moment you're uncomfortable is the moment when you grow as an organization, and this is why this is such a pivotal time. Obviously, there wasn't a succession plan, Tracy, because I wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be still on the board. So therefore, we could have done that better as a board, admittedly. However, the beauty is, and the really exciting thing is that there is going to be change on the horizon. And we saw it no better than Graham Arnold when Graham Arnold left the Socceroos and we changed for Tony Popovich. And you've seen the success, and you can see the high performance standards that he's brought. And it's no different to me. I come in here, I sit in the office, and we are going to raise the bar as an organisation. And in terms of high performance standards, that's what our expectations are. And that's one thing that I know I can bring. I can bring connection. And I think we need to nurture the staff as well to be able to have a common goal together because ultimately, when you walk in the door at Football Australia, you're representing Australia, you're representing the team, and we are a team and we need to work together, whether it's Football Australia or the general stakeholders. We all need to be one and work together. And so that's what I'm excited about because I've been part of a team, I've been part of teams that haven't done well, and I've been part of really successful teams. And I know this organisation can be successful, and it's just a matter of time.
So, what did you learn from the Taekwondo experience that is going to, I guess, determine how you do this role now, the interim CEO role at Football Australia?
Yeah, the most important thing I learned at Taekwondo is connections the key, is being able to work collectively as a staff. And, I continue to stay in touch with my staff at Taekwondo. But fundamentally, the key thing and the consideration for me was that the board is the most important thing when you're a CEO, because ultimately the board sets a strategic direction. And for me, the not negotiable is when I stepped into this role, if I had full belief of the board, I would consider it and I'd take the challenge up. And that's ultimately why I did. And so the key thing for Taekwondo is that ultimately the board is the most important group that determines the outcomes and the direction of the organisation. And so therefore it was really important for me to have the backing of the Football Australia board and the trust for that matter. And I know I've got that.
And so, just in closing, how would you describe your style of leadership?
Open, honest, transparent, fun, but also firm and fair.
I can almost see that on a board, like sitting up above, your desk. So when people walk in, they know what they're going to get, Heather. You haven't put it up yet?
Yeah, I've got focus, discipline, and connection. They're the three key things that we're working towards. Of course, you got to have pictures, and you got to have a whiteboard to focus on a goal. And When I was an athlete, I focused on winning a gold medal. I never got there. It's no different to being the interim CEO of Football Australia. I'm super honoured and proud, and I'll do my best.
Remember, if you want to hear any of my interviews in full, you can subscribe to the Sports Ambassador podcast, which you can find on Patreon or Spotify. Otherwise, keep following here on YouTube for some of my shorts and other stories.